They were 3 days out into the South Atlantic when the first signal came through. A soft blip on the radar, a shape where no shape should be. It didn't move like a ship. It didn't reflect like a storm. It was just there, pulsing, fading, reappearing, as if it was deciding whether or not it wanted to exist. Elliot Marshall leaned closer to the screen. The Sea Horizon was a modern research vessel, fully equipped with sonar, satellite tracking, and all the digital bells and whistles money could buy. Ghost ships didn't appear on screens. Ghosts didn't have radar signatures. And yet, he rubbed his eyes. The blip was still there. "Captain, you seeing this?" Elliot called out, trying to keep his voice steady. Captain Reeves, a hard-edged woman with 30 years of ocean under her boots, stepped into the control room. She looked at the screen, then looked at the empty sea through the glass window. Nothing but fog and endless gray. "No nearby vessels reported in a 100-mile radius," she said, "and no land within 500. Elliot nodded. "But it's coming closer." A heavy silence fell across the bridge. The signal moved like no ship should, not cutting through the water, but gliding, effortlessly, like a shadow beneath the waves. And each time the fog parted, just for a second, Elliot thought he saw something. Masts, tall, wooden, ancient. But they would vanish the moment he blinked. By nightfall, things got stranger. The radio began picking up static, but buried deep in the static was something else. A voice, whispering, pleading. It didn't match any known frequency. "Please, help us, please." The voice was old, cracked, like it came from someone who had forgotten how to speak. They tried to trace it, tried to match it, tried everything they knew. But the only answer came from the sea and from the fog that never left. It was around 2:47 a.m. when the engines died. All at once. Power gone. Lights flickered out. The ship, which moments ago hummed with life, was now nothing more than a silent, floating coffin in the dark. Elliot grabbed a flashlight. Its beam trembled in the fog. And then he saw it. Not far off, maybe 500 feet to the port side, there floated a ship. But not just any ship. It was wooden, towering. Its sails hung in tatters. Ropes swayed in the wind, though there was no wind. A lantern burned dimly on its mast, an old oil lantern swaying like a heartbeat. Elliot whispered without realizing, "That can't be real." And yet, it was. Everyone on the deck saw it, silent, drenched in fog, not moving, not anchored, just floating there, waiting. And carved into the side, though barely legible through time and rot, were the words, "The Flying Dutchman." The crew of the Sea Horizon stood frozen as the ghost ship loomed silently beside them. It didn't make a sound. No creaking of wood. No splash of waves against its hull. It was as if the very ocean refused to touch it. Elliot's breath fogged in the cold air, though it hadn't been cold before. The temperature had dropped sharply, unnaturally. Even the seabirds had vanished. Captain Reeves reached slowly for the binoculars, her gloved hands trembling for the first time in years. Through the lenses, the Flying Dutchman came into terrible focus. Its sails were stitched with something not cloth, something darker, coarser. Its deck was littered with bones, tangled among rotting ropes and rusted tools. A single bell hung from the mast, swinging rhythmically, though there was no wind. Its chime was hollow, like it rang from the bottom of the ocean. "Is that movement?" Elliot asked, his voice hoarse. Captain Reeves lowered the binoculars. There, at the bow of the Dutchman, a figure stood. Cloaked in rags, face hidden beneath a cracked tricorn hat, he held a rusted lantern, the only light on the entire vessel. It cast a dim orange glow over the deck, making the wood appear wet, red, as if it had been bleeding for centuries. And then the figure lifted his head. Though the distance was too great, Elliot felt the gaze, sharp, burning, as if the man could see straight through him, straight through all of them. "That thing's not alive," one crewman muttered. "No," Captain Reeves said, voice tight, "but it remembers being alive." Suddenly, the radio crackled to life again. Static surged, then the same voice returned, louder now. "He watches those who see him. Turn back before your souls are marked." The bridge lights flickered. The power surged, only to die completely again. The ship drifted, powerless, in a dead calm sea. Then, without warning, a loud, deep groan echoed across the water. It came from the Dutchman. The hull shifted, the mast creaked, and that bell, it began ringing faster, louder, as if the ship had wakened up. And that's when the fog moved. It poured off the Flying Dutchman in thick, writhing tendrils, crawling across the water like living smoke. It slithered over the railing of the sea horizon, spilling across the deck, seeping into vents, creeping under doors. Everywhere it touched grew colder, darker. The lanterns on the Dutchman flared, and then they saw them. Figures, pale, translucent, half-rotten, crewmen of the cursed ship. Dozens of them, standing still on the deck like statues, watching, waiting. One by one, they raised their hands and pointed directly at the sea horizon, at Elliot, at Reeves, at everyone aboard. The message was clear. They were marked. The sea was silent again. Not calm, silent. No waves, no birds, no engine hum. Just that bell on the Flying Dutchman, tolling like a death knell, slow and steady. Dong, dong. Captain Reeves gritted her teeth, hand gripping the railing as the cold fog coiled tighter around the ship. It felt alive, like it breathed, like it watched. The way it slithered around the crew's feet, up their legs, across their faces, it didn't just chill the skin, it sank in, deep. Then the screaming began, not from the crew, from below deck. Reeves and Elliot rushed down the stairwell, flashlights cutting narrow beams through the fog. The interior lights had all died. Pipes creaked. The air felt thick, like trying to breathe underwater. They reached the lower corridor and found Jensen, the mechanic, clawing at the wall. "What the hell, Jensen?" Elliot shouted. Jensen turned. His eyes were wide, white, and glowing faintly. "She's here," he whispered. "She came through the door." "What door?" Reeves demanded. Jensen pointed to the elevator, the one that hadn't worked in years, rusted shut. Now it stood wide open, bathed in an orange glow from no visible source. And inside, wet footprints. Bare, human footprints, leading out. "No one's in there," Elliot said, peering inside, but his voice cracked with doubt. Jensen backed into a corner. She was whispering, saying names. She said, "Mine." And then he screamed again. The lights above them flickered violently, and Jensen was gone. No flash, no sound, just gone. 1 second there, the next, a smear of shadow against the wall, a faint echo like rushing wind. Reeves stumbled back. This is not a storm hallucination. This isn't dehydration. This is real. The intercom crackled again. This time, the voice wasn't warning. It was chanting. A guttural, drowned voice repeating the same words. The sea takes what it is owed. The marked cannot run. The bell tolls for the cursed. Back on the bridge, the fog had thickened. The Flying Dutchman was now moving, drifting slowly toward them, though the water didn't ripple. The air around it shimmered with strange currents, as if reality was warping in its presence. Then, a new horror. Names. The crew's names began to echo through the ship's speakers, one by one, spoken in that same ancient voice. Elliot Carter, Sarah Reeves, Daniel Jensen. The list went on, and every time a name was spoken, that person would feel a sharp, invisible cut across their arm, as if marked by a blade of ice. Blood wasn't dripping, it was floating, suspended in the air, like it didn't belong to this world anymore. Captain Reeves had seen enough. "We're not staying on this ship." "But where are we going?" Elliot asked, horrified. She turned toward the ghost vessel, now inches away. "We're going to them." The two ships touched without a sound. No splash, no scrape of metal. It was as if they had always been part of each other, like one was a reflection of the other's doom. Captain Reeves stood at the railing of the Harbinger, staring into the mists that clung to the Flying Dutchman like a second skin. The ghost ship seemed to breathe. A low creak here, a rope swaying there, though no wind stirred. Its sails were torn but frozen, stiff in the air. Its wood looked burned and waterlogged at the same time. No one wanted to be the first to board, but the ship had called them, and Reeves had heard her name echo like a curse. "I'll go first," she said quietly, shotgun strapped to her back, boots soaked in fog. Elliot grabbed her arm. "If we step onto that thing, we're not coming back." "We're already marked," she replied. "Staying here just means waiting to die." With that, she crossed the plank, a rusted maintenance bridge now extending between the two ships like a summoned gateway. Elliot followed, flashlight trembling in his grip. They stepped onto the Flying Dutchman's deck. Silence. Then the creaking began, groaning like 100 ropes being pulled taut, not above, but below, under their feet. Elliot shined his light down. The wooden boards were carved with names. Thousands of names, scratched into the planks by hand, by nail, by blood. Some were fresh, others centuries old. And one of them read, Sarah Reeves. The moment her eyes met the name, something shifted. The fog behind them thickened. When they turned around, the harbinger was gone, completely swallowed. No lights, no sound, just an endless curtain of gray. Reeves didn't panic. She'd seen too much. But Elliot did. "We're stuck! We're stuck, Sarah!" Before she could respond, a scream tore through the ship. A woman's voice, agonized, desperate. They followed it down a narrow staircase, its wood groaning under their weight. Each step echoed twice, like something unseen walked behind them. At the bottom, they entered the captain's quarters. Dust floated in the air, catching no light. The walls were lined with paintings, all water-stained portraits of people drowning. And in the middle of the room stood her, laid out in full sailor's garb, draped in chains, mouth sewn shut. Her eyes were open, and they followed them as they moved. "She's not dead," Elliot whispered. No, she wasn't. And neither were the other shadows that now began to emerge from the corners of the room. Crew. Tall, skeletal, eyes glowing like sea lanterns. Not quite human, not quite ghost. They moved slowly, circling, watching. Reeves raised her gun, but it jammed, wet. Then one of the figures stepped forward. A former man. His lips were torn, and he spoke through a mouthful of seawater. "You boarded. You're part of her now." Reeves stepped forward. "What do you want?" The ghost leaned close. "Not want. Oh." With that, he raised a lantern, one of the only sources of light on the Dutchman, and shined it at her. The flame inside burned backward, sucking in light. And in its glow, Reeves saw a horrifying truth. She had been here before. A child, once rescued at sea. A survivor no one could explain. The Flying Dutchman had saved her or cursed her. Now she had returned like all marked souls must. The ship doesn't lose its passengers. It just waits for them to come home. Reeves staggered back, the vision still burning behind her eyes. A flash of lightning across memory. A younger version of herself pulled from storm-racked waters, cradled in the arms of a sailor whose face she could never remember. Now she did. He was standing in front of her, or at least what was left of him. Skin shriveled, bone jutting from salt-stained flesh, eyes hollow, except for the glow. "You owe us your breath," he rasped. Elliot was shaking beside her, lips parted in silent terror. The ghost circled, the fog thickened. The harbinger was gone. The sea had vanished. Only the Dutchman remained, adrift between moments, a vessel untethered from time. But Sarah Reeves wasn't just a victim, not anymore. She looked down at the floor, the carvings of names that covered every inch of the wood. Her name was there, so was Elliot's. And beneath the mold, she saw something else, a hatch. Without hesitation, she knelt and pried it open. Below, a dark shaft filled with nothing but wind. a tunnel through the belly of the ship. "The heart," she whispered. Elliot swallowed. "What happens if we go down?" "We find the anchor," she said, "or we stay here forever." They dropped. No ladder, just a fall. And then darkness gave way to something deeper. They landed hard. The chamber was massive, impossible. The ship couldn't be this big. And in the center of the void was a chain, thick as a man's torso, stretching downward into black water. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Attached to it was a stone anchor, and bound to the anchor was her, the woman from the captain's quarters. But now she screamed. Not with her voice, with the storm. Thunder roared overhead. Lightning struck the sea above them, though they were deep within the ship. The Flying Dutchman was alive, and this woman, this cursed captain, was its soul. Reeves stepped forward. The ghosts appeared again, surrounding the chamber, arms raised. But she held her ground. "You've been trying to die, haven't you?" she asked the captain. But no one came. No one remembered. The woman raised her chained hands, and for a moment, Reeves saw her not as a monster, but as a prisoner, condemned to sail forever, bearing the weight of every soul the sea refused. Reeves looked at Elliot, then reached for the shotgun on her back. "Either we go down with her," she said, "or we set her free." The trigger pulled. The shot shattered the chain, and the world screamed. The ship cracked, water surged, the chamber collapsed into itself like a whirlpool swallowing time. Ghosts shrieked, the captain smiled, and vanished. Reeves and Elliot clung to each other as the sea rushed in. And then, silence. They woke on a lifeboat, beneath a calm gray sky. The Harbinger was gone, so was the Dutchman. In Reeves' palm, a rusted coin, carved with a wave. A fare paid. They were free. But far on the horizon, in the mist where the sea met the sky, a sail moved, torn, gliding. The Dutchman wasn't gone, only resting, waiting for the next name.